So, all right, but waiting patiently on the line, our next guest, and this guy is totally bulletproof. I've been waiting to talk to this guy. I can say, like, from the moment I saw the blurbs about his book, I was just like on the edge, and I said, I got to get this guy on the show. Let's welcome author, race car driver, entrepreneur, the one and only Mr. Justin Peck. How you doing there, Justin?
I'm doing awesome, man. How about you guys?
Oh, dude, I can't. Yeah, I honestly, like, when I saw, I got a blurb about your book, like, in an email or something, I think, and I was like, holy crap! Like, I got to get this guy on the show. Like, you've been through a lot.
Yeah, well, yeah. I guess it's all perspective, right? You know, I look at it as just normal day-to-day life, but yeah, I've had some experiences, some good ones, some bad ones, but man, it's at the end of the day, I love life, and I love what I do.
And you look like you have fun doing it too. Like, I was sitting there, like, watching some race videos and stuff like that today, and this is the one thing I kept thinking of, like, the style of racing you do, the off-road style racing you do, is always the style like you would see, like, in crazy videos wherever, like, usually, like, I guess in other countries they do the same style of racing, but, like, all the people are, like, right there on the side of the road that you guys are racing on, and I'm like, they're just, like, on top of the cars basically, and the cars are whipping by them. I'm like, that's insanity.
Yeah, it's there are a few races that we go to. So one of the big one is the Baja 1000. It's a pretty popular race, and so it basically starts in Ensenada, Mexico, and goes all the way down the peninsula. So this year's 50th anniversary of it. It's 1,286 miles, and when you start this race, you start in the middle of Ensenada. You go across this bridge and you drop down into this wash. Now, when you drop down into this wash, there are probably, like, I'm not joking, no exaggeration here, there's probably 250,000 spectators. And what they ultimately do is, as you're bombing down this wash at 130 miles an hour, they like to get the selfies. So they'll stand in the middle of the track facing away from you, right? And they'll take a picture as the car is, like, bombing towards them. The big thing too is they like to touch the car. So as we're flying by, they like to try to reach out and touch the car. Doesn't make any sense to me, but hey, it's what they like. So it's a good time.
Oh, and how many times have people, like, actually got ran over? I mean, it has to happen.
Yeah, yeah, it does. There's every single year someone ends up getting hurt, and here again, I don't understand why they do it. I know that if I had a 6,000-pound truck doing 130 miles an hour coming at me, like, I'll stand on the side and watch them go by, but I don't need to touch the truck, man. Not at all.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you. I would just, whenever I see them clips, I just shake my head. I'm like, where is the common sense?
Yeah, common sense. I don't think there is such thing in common sense. Actually, I don't think there's common sense in racing. I mean, you got to think, especially in off-road, people always ask me what it's like, and it's the actual desert racing that I do. I do two forms of racing. So the desert racing, we're talking, 1,000, 1,200 miles. So you're in the race car for 36 hours straight, going over huge bumps, rocks, trees, all sorts of things. And so it's basically like being in a paint shaker for 36 hours straight. It's crazy.
All right, now this is like, what do you have to, when you go to the bathroom? What do you got to do? You just go?
Of course, you're gonna ask that question on radio, brother. So
yes.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, that's actually the first time anybody's asked that on radio. But I will tell you, so what we have is, so we have to hydrate, of course. So we do drink a lot of water, but we wear external catheters. So it's basically like a condom with a tube that runs all the way down your leg, and it's that's how you use the bathroom. So you have to do that when you're doing, 120, 130 miles an hour down roads. It's a little inconvenient, the muscles don't relax very well sometimes, but you have to do what you have to do.
Wow. Yeah, like that's insanity. Like I always wondered that. Like, see, like my problem would be like I'm a fat guy, and I always I always have to go to take a dump at the worst inconvenient times of life. So I would be like, I mean, do they make? What do you got to do then? Then it's on, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, thank God I suffer from travel constipation, man. So I don't have to ever worry about that. But there really are guys out there that will wear Depends and they'll wear racing diapers. They actually make those. Man, we're getting personal here. Holy cow!
I bet you that's a gold mine. That is a gold mine right there.
Yeah. Good times. So go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So I mean, you've been doing the racing for how long now?
So I've been a pro driver for. Well, I've been in off-road. Okay, I'll go back a little bit. I've actually been racing for about 27 years now. Started off on dirt bikes, mostly because they're a lot less expensive. And I mean, I didn't grow up with anything. We were poor growing up, so I started on dirt bikes. Did that for a couple years before I turned pro in the desert on that, and then I raced that for 14 years. Within that 14-year period of time, I've broken 78 bones, had 19 surgeries, 300 screws, 12 plates, 9 rods, 7 concussions. I've got cadaver parts, and I've physically have died twice. So I kind of realized that, desert racing is on a dirt bike is a little crazy. So I stopped doing that. And then immediately the next year after that, I went and drove Porsche Cup and drove Audis and stuff on the asphalt. I did that for, 5 or 6 years. And then I turned pro in that, and then I loved the dirt, so I went back to the off-road stuff, and I've been off-road guy ever since.
So all those injuries were just from racing motorcycles?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I've crashed. I've crashed everything that I've drove, and it's not because I'm inexperienced. I feel like you have to get a pro license and you have to prove yourself and stuff. And so I do have good car control. I do understand racing, but in the dirt, it's not like freeway driving, right? So you have a lot of things that will reach out and grab you, and so I've crashed a lot. I've drove sprint cars, and like I said, I've went through everything, and everything that I've drove, I've crashed, but it's mostly because I like to win. I like championships, and so I always push the limits to win, and it's worked most of my career. But, of course, there are those times that, you wad the truck up, and it's always a good show for the fans because fans like to see people crash. But, it's what it is.
Yeah, people. It's like hockey games. People go to see the fights.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, that's kind of how I explain the other form of racing I do. So I do short course as well. So these are pretty much the same style of truck, but it's like Supercross, right? So you've got the big jumps, and we do laps in that. There's typically 6 or 7 turns, left and right. You're hitting these jumps at 100 plus. You're jumping 200 feet, but you're also battling with 20 other guys. What's cool about that is they've got grandstands. We'll race in front of 50, 60,000 people. It's televised. It's a good time. But that sport is it's literally like UFC, crash derby, all sorts of stuff. I explained that one as it's like being in a shotgun fight in a closet.
Alrighty. Now, how about you mentioned that you died twice? Like,
Yes.
how did that happen? Like,
so both times was just coming out of surgery. I apparently I've had some weird reactions to like the anesthesia and stuff, and so one of the last times they over medicated, and I woke up just fine. Of course, a little pissed off because I hurt from where they cut me open, and they pumped me full of meds, and the next thing you know, my heart stops and I stop breathing, and they hook paddles up to you. I mean, it's actually kind of a cool call sign. I know it sounds goofy, but I still have like the burn scars where they put the paddles on you. 'Cause it really does burn you. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a scary thought.
No, like I say, man, it literally is the funnest sport ever. I've been racing a long time, and like my mother and my family and my children, they look at me and they're like, "Dad, all right, when are you gonna quit?" And my answer is always never. I'll be racing until I like physically can't race anymore, or I die in a race car. One of the two.
Yeah. Did you ever have like aspirations to try to go for NASCAR or?
No, I'm not going to dog on NASCAR at all. But for me, it's just not that exciting. I mean, it is the left turns. They do get good speeds. I mean, we're 200 miles an hour, type stuff. And I have had the opportunity to drive a few NASCAR races and stuff like that. But it just didn't take the driving skill and the driving ability to be able to push myself hard enough to learn. I always like to learn. I always like to have a challenge all the time, and that's ultimately what the dirt does. I mean, every single time that you take a lap, it's not the exact same as the previous lap. The track changes. You get big ruts. You get rocks. You get all sorts of stuff, and so asphalt's fun. I'll race anything with a motor that goes really fast, but yeah, NASCAR stuff, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that where, yeah, I mean, what you guys are doing is a whole different animal, and it is a lot more exciting to watch.
Yeah, for the fans, it's the fans love it, man, and that's another thing about the off-road thing is for me, I really like the interaction with the fans, and so like at our races, the fans are in the pits. It doesn't cost anything extra to be in the pits, and I like to be able to take the smaller kids and sit them in the race car and get pictures with them and do a lot of stuff like that. Plus, we do a lot of charity stuff. We just try to make it a really good, nice, family, comfortable environment for everybody involved.
Now, with the whole, I mean, you got this amazing career in racing that's been going on for 27 years. How did the whole situation come about to where you wanted to commit suicide? Like, at what point in life did that happen?
Wow, talk about going from 0 to 60, brother.
Yeah, right.
So, right. There'll always be racing analogies on my end. So, it was roughly 12 years ago, 11, 12 years ago. I always, since I was a young kid, I knew that I was different. I knew that I was a little goofy. My mind processes and my thoughts were always different than any of my friends, and so I went through a long time of not really understanding too much of how my brain worked or why I was thinking what I was thinking. So there was a time 11 years ago. I'd woke up one morning, I was kind of in like this 6-month cycle of just having this depression and not wanting to get out of bed, not really wanting to do anything, and so woke up, normal morning, leaned over, I kissed my wife, I went upstairs, I kissed the kids, I went out back and grabbed my dog and threw my dog in the back of the truck, and we went to work. And driving around for about an hour, checking on a couple job sites and some of the things that I did there, and found myself at the top of this canyon that kind of overlooked the valley below. And the main reason I had always went there is there was no cell phone service, so I was able to kind of unplug from like society. And as I'm sitting there, I'm watching my dog run around, and she's happy, and she's having a good time. And I'm looking over this valley below and looking at all the houses and all the people down there. And I just, like, it's the craziest thing, right? Like, I had this complete overwhelming sense of despair. Like, I didn't have anything to live for. I had no self-worth, insecure about a million things. And so in one brief moment of irrational thinking, I reached over to my glove box and I grabbed my pistol, I loaded it, I put it to my head, and I pulled the trigger. And the result wasn't quite what I expected, by no means. All I got was a click out of the dill. So I unchambered the bullet thinking, I screwed that one up, so let's try it again. And so the bullet flies out, lands in my lap. And I pick the bullet up, I look at it, and you can see like where the firing pin had actually hit the bullet. But for some reason, man, it just didn't go off. And that was kind of the realization to me that there was something wrong. There was something that I needed to fix, because in my normal day-to-day life, rational thinking, common sense says that you don't do that. And so I ended up driving down the canyon. The adrenaline rush that I got off of that experience was incredible, and it kind of pulled me out of the depression for a minute. Ended up going down the canyon, called my doctor, told him what was going on, went into him. We did some tests and stuff for 3 or 4 months, and ultimately I was diagnosed with class 1 bipolar disorder. So that's kind of where the suicide attempt came into play. But I also learned a lot about myself and understood kind of what I've been going through for the last 30-something years.
Wow. I mean, that whole, I mean, it's just so, I mean, it takes your breath away. It makes you go gasp. Like at that point, I mean, you're putting the gun to your head, and it doesn't. Thank God, it doesn't work. Like, what do you say to yourself? I mean, there's not. You can't say it was. You have to say it was meant to be, that you weren't supposed to die. I mean, you died twice in the hospital, and you try to kill yourself, and it doesn't work. You're somebody that's meant to live a long life. You realize that, right?
Yeah, I have. It's whether it's a religion thing or whether it's a higher power thing or whatever anybody believes. For me, it was kind of at that moment that I really did understand and kind of take it all in, that I had a bigger purpose. I needed to be bigger than myself, and which is why I started the book, and which is ultimately why I do the best that I can now to be a huge mental health advocate, because through my experiences in my life and through the things that I've gone through, I've realized when I'm standing on stage and I get the opportunity to speak in front of 10,000 people, I can look out in that crowd and I can tell these stories, and I can see the emotion on people's faces, because they can relate. They can understand a little bit of what I went through, and at the end of the day, it gives me the opportunity to be able to relate to them, to be able to talk to them, to be able to get some good face time, and to explain to them that no matter how hard or whatever life struggle that you go through, there's always a way to adapt and overcome. And so that's kind of, that's my life purpose. I realized I had a bigger purpose, and so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not going to let the whatever higher power or the angels or the guardian angels or any of that. I'm not going to let them down. I'm not going to let my kids down. I have a purpose, and I'm sticking to it.
Now, that just there, like, when you, almost like a scary thought as well to actually sit there and go through and really open up about these things, thinking, like, what are your kids going to think?
Yeah, that was actually kind of a hard thing for me. The initial book started, so my youngest brother, he suffered with some addiction as well, and he ended up overdosing at the age of 20 and ended up killing himself. And so a couple of years after that, you know, I was laying in bed one night watching TV and was just thinking to myself, you know, I needed to have a written account of my life. And so as my children got older, when they became, you know, 30, 40 years old, they could read the story about their dad and maybe relate to them or see the struggles that I went through. And so it took me 8 years to write the book, ended up finishing the book. But the crazy thing about it is I realized through the book that I had the bipolar disorder. I remember my first mania phase, which was at 13, but I was the master, and I'm still kind of the master of being secretive about everything. No one knew, and so when the book was released, you know, my mother, she called me up sobbing, saying, like, I had no idea. Why didn't you say something? Friends and family and the people that I know, they would always come up and say, we had no idea. Well, I realized that it did nobody any good for me to keep everything private anymore. And,
right.
You know, it's hard to talk about. I'm not going to lie, but at the end of the day, man, if I can just help one person to not go to the top of the canyon, then my life purpose, it means something.
Has this almost been kind of like writing the book, like an easier way to actually share what you've been going through with your family?
Yeah, it was. Man, I don't necessarily know if it was easier to share. It was just, like I said, it was one of those things that I got tired of hiding it. You know, one of the big things that kind of sparked me is when Robin Williams ended up taking his own life. And you're
right.
talking about a guy that has made hundreds of millions of people laugh, and from outside looking in, this guy was an incredible human. But people didn't know who he was. And so on my end, I want to be able to explain to people who I am. And, you know, I'm not going to lie about it. I'm going to be raw about it. I'm going to be honest about my life experiences. So at the end of the day, there's never any surprises.
Nice. Now, you mentioned like when you go through a mania, like a mania, like is it like an attack? Like, what do you mean by a mania?
All right, so of course there's the two sides of bipolar disorder. So there's the depressive state where I don't get out of bed for 2 or 3 weeks, and you're just feeling down, and you don't have any self-worth, and you know you're really, really hard on yourself. The crazy thing about life and the things that I've come to kind of realize was that life has a way of balancing itself out. And so you're at a really low point of your life. Well, the mania or the manic phase is completely opposite. So when I'm manic, I have unbelievable motivation. I'm very confident in what I do. I'm creative. You know, I start companies. I drive better. The issue behind having those type of things happen is that I end up being too much for the people around me. My mind spins constantly, and I do crazy things. I don't assess risk very well. I don't really understand consequence very well, and so the people around me are affected. For me, I love it. It's the best feeling ever. But for the people around me, they have a hard time handling it, and that's kind of where the medication comes into play, and honestly, that's where the helmet comes into play too. I mean, my helmet is my medication.
Like, now, is there a test to get done that they can figure like that's me, and I'm a person suffering from depression, and then I'm like this totally motivated person, or I'm like not wanting to get out of bed for days. I mean, I'm on medication already. I see a therapist and all this stuff, and that is like so me, like everything you just described.
See, and that's what when you say stuff like that it doesn't necessarily make me happy, but it just reiterates to me and to the people that are listening and to you that mental health is a big deal. I can sit in front of thousands of people and people can relate to it. They can relate to the stories, and if I can bring it to light and let people know that they don't need to be embarrassed about it, man, let's end the stigma. Mental health, if you have a disorder, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We just learn how to acclimate to the situations that we go through.
Right. Now, I got to ask you, you said you start businesses. Like, what kind of business did you end up starting? That's awesome.
Man, I've done so many. So, like in my when I first started, so I was married super young, at 17, and I worked for people for about a year and a half, and realized that I couldn't hold down a job. I would always, as a young kid, I always thought that I knew more than the boss, and so I'd try to tell them how to run their companies, and being a boss, that doesn't work. I mean, they're not going to listen to some punk kid. So I started my own company when I was 18 because I wanted to run things my way. And through the course of my working career, I have started, I think I'm up to 22 companies right now. A lot of them fail. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I get good ideas, or I think that they're good ideas, and I try really, really hard to make them successful. A lot of times they don't work, but on the flip side of that, the law of averages say that it doesn't matter how many times you try, eventually you're going to succeed. And so, I've been fortunate to have, successful construction companies, to have successful investment companies. I own my own race team now. I've done some inventions and had things go to market on that. So, and then at the end of the day, where I'm at right now is I became an author, and it's something that I was told for many, many years that you couldn't do. Like, you can't write a book. Well, I'm that guy that will say, well, I'll show you that I can. And so I did.
So which was harder? Was writing a book harder than starting a business?
Man, writing a book was probably the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. So, complete truth, right? Complete true story. I have only read from cover to cover 2 books in my life. I read one in junior high because I had to do a book report on, and then the second book that I've read cover to cover is my own. And so, being that my mind spins so hard and that I have a hard time focusing and concentrating, the book took a long time to write. So yeah, the book was definitely one of those things that I'm, I'll try it again one day to maybe do another version or a second book, but as it sits right now, I'm pretty content with just one.
How about movie? I mean, this is something that could be made into a movie, don't you think?
Yeah, I've so when I wrote the book, I sent it to an editor. I wanted to I wanted them to clean it up just a little bit. And the editor had passed it along, or she asked me if she could pass it along to a couple of people. And I had a well-known publishing company. They called me and said, "Hey, you know what? We'll give you a little bit of money, and you can be under our umbrella, and we'll publish you." And I told them no, because I wanted to be self-published. I wanted all the creative right to be mine. And then about a week and a half later, I got 2 phone calls from 2 different directors begging to please, give up a little bit of creative right for the book so they could make a movie about it. And here again, I said no. I'm not necessarily interested in that right now. I've always thought that it'd be goofy to me, it would be odd to me to sit in a movie about me while I'm still alive. And let's be honest, man, good movies are always about people that have died and have kind of went on. So yeah, movies always in the thing, but it's going to be a while.
No, that's not true. There's got to be people alive that they made a good movie about.
Yeah, there are a couple people, but I don't know. For me, it seems embarrassing.
So, all right, then, who would you want to play you in the movie? Besides Brad Pitt.
Man, what? Well, yeah, let's go Hugh Jackman, right? Like he's a badass. Or let's go Bradley Cooper, or something like that. And then we could get a Kate Beckinsale to play my wife, or a Leslie Mann. I could cast this movie like crazy, man. It would be awesome.
Oh, that's great. That is freaking great. But yeah, Hugh Jackman, yeah, that would be a good one.
Yeah, and then we could add some special effects in it, and I could grow spikes out of my hand, and make it funny and a comedy, and I could be one of the X-Men. I don't have a problem with that.
Oh, that'd be huge. I'm in.
Perfect.
Where do I put my ticket? So, is there a race coming up this weekend, or was it last weekend in Vegas? Wasn't it recently you were in Vegas?
Yeah, so I was in, so we had a race, it's called the Mint 400. It's one of the most famous, popular races in long-distance off-road racing, and that was in Vegas 3 weeks ago. And then no, it was 2 weeks ago, sorry. And then last week I was in San Bernardino, California at a racetrack called Glen Helen, and we had a short course event there. And then I've got a week off, and then we've got Laughlin, Nevada, we've got Baja, Mexico coming up. We've got a race here in Utah. I mean, for me, I typically race anywhere between 25 and 30 weekends a year. So I'm always in the race car, which is my safe space. I mean, that's what I like to do.
Now, how about when you're not in that race car?
When I'm not in the race car, it can be a struggle. It's after a race, I have a tendency of kind of falling off a little bit. During the race, I have a lot of adrenaline and a lot of serotonin, dopamine dump type stuff. But when I'm not in the race car, I kind of fall off a little bit. The big thing that's helped me, at least for the last couple of years, is being so focused on being the mental health advocate. So that keeps me quite busy. I still get a pretty good rush, standing in front of 10,000 people and telling my story. And so it's definitely been an experience that I wouldn't give up for anything.
Now when I saw about you being an advocate for it and talking to people, I'm thinking to myself, you're going and talking to a room of a few hundred people, but you're going and talking to 10,000 people?
Yeah, I've got an event here coming up. I think it's May or something, that there's supposed to be anywhere between 10 and 12,000 people. I'm really pushing right now. We've got a lot of speaking at the colleges. I'm a big a proponent on STEM education, and so I go through and go to the junior highs and high schools and talk about STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and math programs. The colleges are great because I get to speak in front of their entire medical department. So these kids that are learning how to be doctors or psychologists or those type, they can actually hear what it's like to be on the other side. Instead of reading the book about the textbook from school, they can actually hear real life experiences from me. And so it's good. I mean, it's those things where I can convey my experiences and people will listen. What I've found through my short years that I've lived is that it's about 1 in 4 people that I meet have some type of mental illness, and it's legit 100%. Every single person that I meet, they either have a disorder or they know someone who does. And so it's not that it's an epidemic, but it's one of those things that if we can bring awareness to it, if we can end the stigma, I really believe that. I mean, my main goal at the end of the day, I'm one guy. I get that I'm just one guy, but I want to change the world, man. I want to bring happiness and tolerance and all these positive things to everybody that I can meet. And, people say that I can't do it. Well, at the end of the day, I'm going to prove them wrong.
Nice. Yeah. You got the power to do it, man. You really do. And that's the big thing.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, they just need to, know. And that's the thing. A lot of people just are not educated about the thing, or they're just scared to say there could be something wrong.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, what I've found as well when I'm speaking and what I never really understood until a few years ago is why don't the people that have the celebrity status or that are big influencers, why don't people talk about this type of thing? And what I've come to realize is the reason why people don't talk about it is because it's hard. So every time I tell a story, because I've lived it, I actually relive it over and over and over again. And so it puts me at risk to relive it in a way that I can spiral down into a depressive state or spiral up into the mania. And that's why I think people don't talk about it, is because it's hard and you relive those experiences. And what I'm willing to do, for me, is I'm willing to sacrifice my mental well-being to bring the awareness to as many people as I possibly can.
Yeah, well, when you're talking to a room of 10 to 12,000, you're doing it.
I'm sure trying, brother.
So, all right. So, where can everybody get the book? It's called Bulletproof.
Yeah. So Bulletproof, you can get it on my website. It's at justinpeck.com. I have a lot of good information, about the book. I've got a active blog that explains a little bit more about the mental disorder. It gives helplines and it gives suggestions. By no means am I a doctor, and by no means do I give advice because I'm not a doctor. But the blogs kind of go over my experiences and stuff, and so. Like I said, the website, justinpeck.com, I have a lot of good information, and you can purchase the book there.
Nice. Very good. Justin, this has been an amazing talk, man. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here to talk to us, and I'm glad you're here to write the book and share your story with everybody.
Well, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak about it. I just, here again, it makes me happy because I feel like I have a reasonable platform now that people will listen. And yeah, like I said, again, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Hey, again, thank you. Everybody needs to go justinpeck.com, get that book. And if you're out in the desert where you see cars racing by, don't take a selfie.
Yeah, don't do that. I don't want to run over anybody, man. Like that's not cool. Not cool at all.
Oh, all right, Justin. Well, thanks, man. Be safe out there, and yeah, let's keep in touch, and get you back on here, talk some more racing and stuff.
Yep, anytime. I'll come back anytime that you need.
Cool. Sounds like a plan.
All right, thanks, brother.
Thank you. Take care, man.
You too.
All right, there he goes, Justin Peck, good old number 49, off-road racer. Check out his website, justinpeck.com, for more information and also to get his book.